Hi guys, it's me Malcolm, and I'm here at the Vroman bookstore here in Pasadena. Yeah, this is the front right here with the magazine stand. The reason why I'm here because I'm here to see one of my favorite authors, Leigh Bardugo. Who did the Grishaverse, like the Shadow and Bone trilogy.
Don't believe in fairy tales. I don't believe in
The Six of Crows duology. And the King of Scars duology.
Follow me, follow me, follow.
So let's go inside, shall we? According to this, so inside voice. According to this, she's presented here to have the Walk of Fame thing they're having here in the bookstore. I don't know where it is. I need some assistance to know where they're having it at the place, but as you can see though this place is beautiful. It's just like LA Festival. Oh, excuse me, do you work here? Where's the event for Leigh Bardugo?
Oh, that's gonna be outside. It's gonna be this way, and I can show you.
Okay. Typical. I had a feeling this place will take place outside. Well, let's follow. Oh.
It's just gonna be in this alley over here.
Huh?
If you go out this door, make a left, it's gonna be in this alley that you see over here.
Okay. Oh, look at those socks. Oh, speaking of which, I have the same ones as well. I wore them just for the occasion. And as for these shirts, these are nice. Yes, I should have worn one as well. Yeah, as you can see, yeah, this is all her books that she all did. And look at the bag. I have that one too. I'm so prepared to see her. Oh, so yeah, this is where. Oh, that's her. I see chair. I see chairs of it. That's odd. Oh, I see. Oh. Well, just in case, if it's somewhere else, I should put this bag right here. That way, I can have my place there. Oh yeah, it's here.
Well, you made a huge difference with us all here, and we can't thank you. So, Vroman's patrons, please welcome Leigh Bardugo, and let's give her a big round of applause.
There she is.
Here we go.
Okay. Yes, sorry, I have the visual.
Okay.
I did not think this.
Wow, no. This is my daughter, Christine. She lives in Pasadena. Wonderful. Flag. And I know this is.
We're here to watch an event.
That's her family. That's her mother.
The first candle.
None of the women want to push. Fingerprinted at the police or something.
Second.
Oh no, I really made it. But you know I meant it.
You might be able to see if you go around as Julia. You can
Clean up
walk on the
before we
road.
move to.
You know who you are? No. Okay. I'm gonna upstage her. Where is Eric? Oh, he's probably oh, yeah, it's been that's
Okay, are you ready?
It's interesting. Sorry, I did not wear the right
Come back to sit here. Once his eyes fine.
Ooh. Oh, beautiful. She's a perfectionist, I can tell.
Yes, she is.
Just, you know.
Keep an eye out for it.
That's what I made this. Actually, can I have like beautiful? Somebody else?
Yeah, just in case.
Yes.
Vroman Walk of Fame, Leigh Bardugo, everyone. All right.
Can I say something real quick? Oh, I was just gonna just shout. My mom is here. She's here. She was a single mom, and we spent a lot of time in bookstores because there's no other place where they'll just let you sit and read and enjoy without buying. I mean, everybody buys something, but still. And a lot of those bookstores that I grew up in and got to have adventures in and leave my world for a while in don't exist anymore. And Vroman's does. And I'm so grateful for that, and I'm really honored to be a part of their history. So, yeah.
All right. Now we want to move on to the interview portion of it. So we can slowly make our way. Everybody make sure to not mess up the water. Make sure back to the sport and listen to your needs. Thank you.
Over.
We are going to go in there after. Sitting now. We're going to stand over here, and then we're going to have some snacks. I'm so sorry. You have this in your bag. You never know when you might need some vanilla chai.
Oh my God! You have the cane from the event.
We've got specifically got these seeds.
I'm not with these people, so there's
Where are we supposed to go? Hi.
This is your big day, no vacation for you.
So nice of you to come.
Oh, wouldn't miss it for the world. Want to go one foot over? I think we're fine. We're fine. This is great. Hello there.
Hi.
This is Mama the author. You're with the VIP here.
Oh.
It's so good to see you.
Oh, good to see you too.
You look great.
Thank you. So do you.
I'm so glad after on a Saturday.
Let me just put this on airplane mode. That way I won't get distracted with any of these
Yes, he is stupid.
notifications I have.
That's what happened.
You know what? I've given them my information, so I'm going to put my
That's what insurance is for.
sorry.
Okay.
She has osteoporosis. It's rare in her ankles.
Oh, let me take off my
Eyes.
glasses.
So it's good. They don't really have anything to do. They have a lot, and they don't know what to do. She's thinking of going for stem cell transplant. If it works, go. I don't know. And Costa Rica.
I feel naked now that my rings are off. You see me constantly being like,
Give it us 1 moment, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Has anyone else here has anyone else here written your name in cement before? Yes. What's the name of the vandal? Yeah. Actually, yeah, when I was a kid. Yeah. But this was new. I didn't know there was a whole. I put my very students. He was like, flow. I was like, I'm not great at flow. I'm mostly good at just punching my wings. Is this signature different than how you sign your books? Yes, because I actually, if I think too much when I'm signing, I will lose the flow, and it's happened to me when I sign books. Like, I will suddenly be like, I don't know what's happening. What is my name? What is my name? How do I get home for later? Yeah, it does seem like it would be harder than you did great. You did great. I'm very impressed. We're going to start just a minute once he has our sounds.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate it. Wasn't that fantastic? we want to welcome Sarah Ennie here to interview Leigh Bardugo on the trip. So let's get it started.
Well, as Leigh said, thank you guys for coming here. It is so special. Vromans in general. Leigh is so special. These two powers combined. What a wonderful Saturday. Leigh, I want to start by saying congratulations.
Yeah.
I would also there's only 5 other Walk of Fame people so far. Author Walk of Fame people. So you're in rarefied air.
Michael Connolly.
Yeah.
Never heard of him. He's a big deal.
You write about secret societies. Y'all have to tell us if there's a secret handshake or something that.
Well, now I'm not going to get invited. Michael Connolly's like, no keys to the treehouse for you.
No. Well, I want to start out by talking about Vromans. They made a point of talking about your support over the last couple of years, which of course, as we know, has been really tough for bookstores, so it's amazing to see people gather and support this incredible local institution that's super important. We are all going to buy some today, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been coming to Vromans for much longer than the last couple of years. You've grown up in LA, and it has been one of your local spots. Can you talk to us about what your childhood memories of Vromans are?
I mean, like I said, we would go after work. My mom was working full time, and usually we would be, if we weren't on the weekends, we would be at a bookstore after she was done with work. And I had no idea what she was doing with her time. She could have been looking at cookbooks, or I don't know, Mom, spy novels, erotica.
Probably not.
I was always allowed to just go in the aisles and choose whatever I wanted, and I would sit and read, and it was really. It never occurred to me to think that we weren't going on vacations or that we weren't doing some of the stuff that other kids were doing because I lived in books. And Vroman's was a weekend store because we lived in the Valley. And for me, especially during the pandemic, the idea of seeing places like this close was truly scary and heartbreaking. The other one for me was Bob Baker's Marionettes, which I don't know if you guys know is like a local institution. I had a mental breakdown when I thought they might close and was like, I'll donate. What do you need? What do you need? So it just means a lot to me that there's continuity and that we get to keep having these places, and there's just no substitute for a local store. There just isn't. And as we are sort of up against these bigger forces that essentially are telling us what books should be and what books should cost and who should have access to them, I'm very grateful for independent sellers.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't wait until you get a marionette made about you.
My next goal.
Yes! You have this great quote. I was rereading some of the press written about you, especially around when Ninth House came out. And you have this great quote about literature, especially for kids. And you said, we never stop looking. We're all waiting for that moment, this belief that there will be no back to the wardrobe, that it goes all the way through. Which is kind of what you're saying about finding magic here in places like this. I don't know, I guess I'd love to hear you talk about, you kind of grew up as someone who was leaning towards the goth side of things in Southern California, which is maybe not always, there's a bit of a clash there. But you found a home in new universes. In books. What kind of books were transporting you?
I mean, for me, the discovery of science fiction and fantasy was, I think, life-saving. It wasn't just life-changing. When I was around 11, we moved. My mom remarried. I started going to new school. I hit puberty. Everything was bad. Everything was terrible. All there was, home and school and the mall. And I walked into my school library and there was a table there and they had a bunch of science fiction and fantasy classics and it said, Discover New Worlds. And that was really all I wanted, was to know that there was something more than Southern California. I was a weird, awkward, gothy, lumpy kid. And I desperately needed to know that there was a place where being smart and prepared and clever mattered, and to dream of a place where I would find my people and find my purpose. And I get really annoyed when people talk about science fiction and fantasy as escapism, as if nonfiction is escapism. Anytime you pick up a book or a magazine, we're escaping our lives, we're entering the page. And to me, it was expansive. It was showing me that there was more, and that was so vital to me. And bookstores were where that happened. And I'm not going to pretend I was always reading high literature. I was not. As a kid, I really loved Garfield books. Like that was like just hilarious, the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And but that was, I also felt like books appeared magically. Like when you discover Stephen King, you're like, oh, he writes a book a week. Because I'm finding, I mean, he almost does, but like where you're finding a new book every time you go to the store. And that for me was, even if we couldn't buy them, I could sit there and we could read them. And my mom gave me the gift of never judging what I was reading. So she didn't care if I was reading my 30-second Dragonlance book. She knew I was getting fed high literature when I was in high school and junior high school. As long as I loved to read, I think she recognized it was actually a pretty healthy habit to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get the opportunity to read what you want to read, it keeps that joy, which is so important. I wonder if there's just, because everyone here is about to go into Vroman's and buy a book, if there's any kind of ones that stand out to you as like big worlds that were sort of game-changing for you that people could check out if they like your work.
I mean, the pivotal ones for me growing up were Swiftly Tilted Planet. Dune was huge for me. Don't know if you guys have heard of it. There's a book called Dune. Dune was huge. Everything by Stephen King, but I remember the one we all read first, I think it was Skeleton Crew. It's the one with Children of the Corn in it, because it was like the movie tie-in edition with Children of the Corn on it, and it got passed around like contraband with my 5th grade class. And I remember reading The Boogeyman and literally like not being able to sleep for a month, like just, and then being like, oh, I can sleep again, I'll reread it. Right? But that was power, that was understanding the power of storytelling. Also, Louise Erdrich was huge for me. Like, I remember they excerpted from, I believe it was from Tracks, one of her novels, a story called Fleur. And I read it when I was probably 13 or 14. I'd never read magical realism before. I didn't understand what fiction could do in that way. And not to get too heavy, but it was also the first story I read about sexual assault. There wasn't like this teary after school special or this idea that it was gonna break you for the rest of your life, where I was like, oh damn, I'm allowed to be mad. I might turn into a bear and kill someone. Like, that was very thrilling as a youth, you know, and especially as a young girl who felt powerless. Like, that was a really transformative moment. And I actually met her at BookCon. I was the last person in her line and completely burst out crying. She was very calm. I was very grateful. Gently held my hand. I was like, I like your jewelry.
That's so sweet. I met Anne M. Martin once and was like, keep it together. I didn't. But she seemed used to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, anything by her. She has a new book called The Sentence, I think. I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure it's spectacular. I think she writes it spectacular.
And the Vroman's staff is here to help as well. Booksellers, of course, are wonderful at directing you. Yeah, one of the other, you said Neil Gaiman, Diana Wynne Jones, Stephen King, in some previous interviews. Great places to start to get into this world, which, if you're here, you're aware.
I think everybody here is book people, so you can ask them.
So speaking of kind of Southern California, finding your place, you went to Yale. It was much more Gothic, bare trees, stone buildings, all that wonderful stuff. But you chose to come here to build your literary life and to create your world. So I wonder what you think about the literary community in Los Angeles. LA is not really, people think about it as movies and TV, but there's so much going on literature-wise in this city.
There's a lot of writers here, and they're not all writing screenplays. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Look, I didn't come back here to be a writer. I came back here because I had a job in Seattle that was miserable, and I got offered a job in LA. And I really had to sort of make peace with that, because I thought, when I had left, I thought, I am never going back. Right? I don't like sunshine, I don't like the beach, I don't like people. And then I came back here as an adult, and lo and behold, it is very different to live here as an adult and find your own community of like-minded folks and build a life here and be able to drive wherever you want. It's very different to be an adult in Los Angeles, and the beautiful thing is that people come here. People get tired of living in the cold, and they come here, or they want a backyard, and so they come here. And I will say too, when I first sold my first YA book, I remember the way I was welcomed in. Gretchen McNeil, who's a young adult author. Oh my gosh, she's here. Okay. Hello, Gretchen McNeil.
official, unofficial welcoming committee of Los Angeles. She was also so kind to me when I moved here.
I mean, Grisha really is. Like, she is she's an amazing writer too, and I always call her the hardest working woman in YA because she delivers books I'm looking on this bookstore here, and she's like, I wrote one in 6 weeks. Level up, Bardugo. She really is one of the kindest people, and she brought me into this community of writers and YA writers, and we were all debuts together. We came to each other's events. We came to this store multiple times for events. One of my first writing events was here, so there is quite a community, and there's quite a tradition too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is beautiful to, as you say, become an adult and be like, oh right, like LA Noir, like there's layers to this city. It's a wonderful.
I mean, another friend and I, Adrian, hello. We were talking about like what book would you give to somebody if you wanted to make them fall in love with LA? Because the first thing you think of is Didion, and you're like, oh no, that won't make you love Los Angeles. And then you're like, well, then there's all this noir, there's Elroy, or there's Mosley, or there's Chandler, and you're like, still a lot of murder, maybe not the choice. So I still haven't found that like Welcome to Los Angeles book.
Ooh, yeah. If anyone thinks of one, tell us later. That's really, I love that question. I'm gonna have to think about that. Okay, I want to ask about, obviously you're here to talk about books and loving books, but you are one of the rare authors who has seen your worlds brought to life in a couple different ways. Of course, on the screen with Netflix's Shadow and Bone series, which
Yeah.
Some of the writers are here.
And you most recently have Demon in the Wood, a graphic novel of a prequel to Shadow and Bone. I just would love to hear you talk about that experience. Both of those are so different, but just having artists and other writers and actors embody your worlds and bring them to life is so cool. What was it like?
I still don't know how to answer this question, and it's probably the one I get the most because it changes all the time. I actually was very lucky. I got to collaborate with brilliant writers who actually had a lot of respect for the work I did, and they had respect for my readers too. And I think that's unusual. I think that a lot of times when people choose something for adaptation, they approach it in the spirit of, we're gonna fix this, right? We're gonna make, she somehow tricked a bunch of people into thinking this was a good book. And we know that. And I watched people go through that experience. And I was very lucky to be able to be in it, see people take my work and find a new way to tell stories with it, but still keep the core, like the heart of the characters intact. And that was what was important to me. Adaptation is tougher than I expected. Being a writer is both like being like a god and also being the lowliest worm, So when the work is yours, you're in control of all of it, and the minute it leaves your hands, you are nobody and nothing. So I think that the idea of bringing people into that world was initially very daunting, but again, a good experience. And then with Demon in the Wood, it was sort of like the best of both worlds because I had this wonderful collaborator, Danny and Kayla, and we were able to figure out how we wanted to tell the story, changes that we wanted to make from the original story. Danny then took it and just ran with it because she is so talented and gifted. But also it was like, we were the writers, the directors, the costumers, we got to choose everything that we wanted to the way we wanted to do it, which was a pretty exciting thing.
Yeah, that's it's beautiful. I love this trend of graphic novelizations, working with existing worlds and also just interpreting them, like Saba Tahir's books, graphic novels based on her series are unbelievably beautiful.
And it just won the National Book Award for YA. You're looking so hot, all my rage.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was really fun to see. Just to get to live in it and look at every, really spend time with the book. It's so special.
Well, we also had the wonderful Ben Barnes, my friend Ben. Ben Barnes did the narration for the audiobook. They did a full cast recording with sounds, and I've had a few people talk about buying the book and then listening to it while they flip through because it slows them down, and there's also some differences they can pick out. But I was like, oh, I love that. That seems like a very cozy winter activity. In the full winter.
Also very soothing. Oh, that sounds lovely. I'm writing for podcasts now, so I'm like, oh, I'll have to check that out. Always telling stories in different mediums is so fun and challenging as a writer, so you're getting to kind of cross all of that.
Yeah, I did not know you worked on Scamfluencers, which I've been listening to.
You have been? Okay, well, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Any Tom Brady fans here, I've got a podcast episode for you. Okay. I am so curious. We're talking about you kind of seeing other people play in your world, and I also wonder if that impacts you when you go back to the page. So you're writing a lot of, Ninth House, and you're in that world right now. I wonder if you think differently about how you describe things, or if you think about the visualization of characters differently.
I think I am one of those people who loves story structure. Like, I love it. I love hearing about story. I love hearing about craft. I love breaking other people's plots. Like, not breaking, like figuring out how they work.
A term of art.
Yes, but that is one of my favorite things. So I think I learned a lot from that, both with Ninth House and with Shadow and Bone, in terms of pace and that kind of thing. But also, the only real thing is, I'm always like, ooh, that's gonna be expensive. Like, I'll write something, I'm like, it's gonna cost a lot of money, but I can do it because I don't have a budget.
I know, if anything, learning more about how TV shows and movies get made, I think frees you up as an author, because you're just like, not my problem.
No, well, that's a season 2 problem, that's a season 3 problem.
Let's make this unfilmable. I want to ask about Hellbent. Ninth House is your adult series after the Shadow and Bone and its many progenitors, which I'm sure everyone here is a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of. Alex Stern is a very important person to me. The move into adult fiction, though, far from certain after making establishing yourself in YA, taking the risk of writing an adult book, and one that was really personal to you. And then it had this huge reception, and I think people are obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it. Did you already have it kind of mapped out beforehand? Were you waiting to see how it did before you kind of further explored that world? I'd love to just hear where you are with that series right now.
So, Hellbent is coming out in January. Here's the thing about Hellbent. It was a weirdly fun book to write. It was really hard, and I did it differently than I usually have written my books in the past. With both Ninth House and Hellbent, all my other books, I sort of just like slam my way through the first draft, right? The 0 draft, you just don't look back, you just keep going, trying to maintain that momentum. But with Hellbent and with Ninth House, I would write it in chunks. I would write the first act, and then I would go back and revise. I would write the second half, and the first half, and then I would send that to my editor, take a break, work on something else, and then go back. And it actually really helps to work on them that way, because they're so dense, and because the release of information, I'm usually working with multiple timelines and multiple mysteries, so I have to keep them fresh in my head. And I'm also getting older, it's harder to remember things. But for me, Hellbent was, I know a lot of people don't think of Ninth House as like a fun book, but I thought it was. I thought it had a lot of jokes in it. So I was really delighted, because one of the reviews was like, this book is funny. And I was like, yes, it is. Because I think I tend to write, I like dark stories. That's actually weird that I say that. It's not that I like dark stories. I think if you're going to tell a story honestly, particularly in a place like Yale, particularly if you're layering some dark magic on top of it, then you're going to end up in some dark places. So it's not like I go into the book being like, I'm going to freak you out, but I hope that I do. And I think too, like for me, the way I have dealt with sadness in my life, trauma in my life, is humor. That's the way I'm built. And so that's the way my characters are built too.
Yeah, and I was just talking to friends yesterday about stories that are really earnest and that could sort of earn your loyalty, because they are willing to look at both sides of the coin. Like, life is full of joy and also the opposite of joy. And it's
Joy and pain?
Joy and, what's the opposite of joy?
Sorrow.
Yeah, sorrow, that's a good one. We're just gonna come up with thesaurus hour right now. But you sort of need, and I like to say about writing that you can make someone laugh as long as the pendulum swings equally both ways. If you make someone cry, you're more likely to make them laugh, and vice versa. If you get the full range of emotions, your reader's gonna really crack open and be there with you, I think.
I mean, what I always say is, if you haven't cried, how did you know you were there? Like if I'm leaving a place and I feel emotional about it, I think, oh well, that means something really happened to me here. I really loved it here. If I, do something terrible, like kill a character, or sometimes worse, just put my character through some business, I think that it's not that I'm doing that for the sake of doing it, it's that there's a journey for them to go on. And I think all of us go through that journey. And the thing that saves us is, having people, not only being able to laugh, but having people who will laugh with us. and who can accept both sides of us, accept the difficult side, the painful side, the angry side, and also be clowns with us, you know? Like, that's really, really important.
Yeah, and I think for, you know, we talk a lot about writing for young women particularly, and to see that reflected on the page, huge for young women who may not always feel like if they're a mess, they're going to be. Not just for the young
ones, you know? Like, I'm coming up on 50, and like, the thing I notice is that, you know, when we get older, there's a desire to sort of, especially in this town, we're like, I don't even see you. There's like a blur. Like wherever there's a lady-shaped person, you know, like, and it can be very easy to let your emotions and your feelings get swallowed up by that. And so for me, you know, I'm never thinking of like a particular person that I'm writing for, but I'm hoping that whoever goes into the book sees themselves in it in some way and comes out with some sense of whatever they need in that moment, right? Sometimes it's just like, I just want to be someplace else for a little bit and go on an adventure, and that is a tremendous gift, right? Like, to be able to have a place that you go, a comfort book, that is a beautiful thing. And sometimes it's, I am angry, and I need to see somebody else being angry, and I need to see somebody do things I can't do, pick up a bat, pick up a knife, pick up whatever it is, you know,
conjure something,
you know, go into the dark and come back, maybe a little bruised or broken, but still alive. Like, that can be powerful too.
Yes, and provide catharsis, which is so real.
Yes, and the thing I hate is when I watch a show, and I'm not naming the name of the show, but there's a particular show, I was like, I'm out. Like, when I see somebody just get pummeled and there's no catharsis, there's no chance for them to hit back, I can't stay in.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you have said at some point that the Ninth House series might be as many as 5 books. I just want to check in with you on that.
Thank you for being with us today. Originally, I was like, I'm gonna write 12 Ninth House books. I was like, it's like a detective story, and then I was like, maybe 5. And now there will be.
She's in college for a long time.
I thought she could go off and solve, you know, supernatural crimes. But as it turns out, I'm gonna write 3. So there will be 3 Ninth House books. I already know the title of the 3rd. And it's gonna be super weird. So, and we will actually leave New Haven for part of it. So.
Ooh, yeah, I love that. And you know, I just want to know if you could tell us anything about maybe like whole new worlds you might be interested in.
I am working on a book right now. It's a big departure for me. It's actually historical fantasy. So, and I can't really say more about it yet, but it's a lot of research. I'm about 100 pages in. I'm hoping to have the first half to give to my editor before I leave on tour, but we'll see. It's scary, you know, like so this is actually probably the most character-driven story I've written. I tend to approach books from plot first. Like, I always say I'm the Michael Bay of YA, like, if I can blow it up, I will. You know, and maybe slightly less sexist, who knows? But I definitely always go plot first, and in this case, the characters came to me first, and were talking to me, and I was like, okay, this is new. I'm gonna settle into this, and I'm determined to not overcomplicate it, to not be like, you know what? I know, right? No heists, no bizarre puzzles. I just really want it to be about these characters, so that's sort of the challenge in front of me.
That's really cool. You know, that makes me think of a question that Zan Romanoff is in the audience, another great young adult writer. She was talking about what we were going to talk about, and it was about reading and how you are now a professional author. You're talking about a book that must require a ton of reading for research. How do you balance your reading to keep the joy of it and also to do the reading you have to do, you know, for various reasons, to keep up with your friends, to keep up with what you're writing? There's a lot of demands on your time.
I mean, the real answer is I don't. I don't get to read as much fiction as I used to. It is harder for me to read fiction now because, and I always know the book is great when I forget my editor brain. And I always know the book is great when I think, damn, I wish I'd come up with that. I'm reading Kelly Link's novel right now for critique, and it's so good that I'm honestly having some problems. Like, it's so good, and she's such a good writer, and such a different writer. But that's sort of one of the great honors of my life, is that I get to work with, I went on a retreat with Kelly, and I remember sitting across the table from her, just sort of staring at her like, hello, genius, you know, and trying to be cool, not being cool. Holly Black is, I'm lucky enough to have as a critique partner, Sarah Reese Brennan, Daniel
Holly.
Older. Like, these are people whose books I love and respect, and so reading their work is sort of where a lot of my fiction comes from, and then, you know, and having people that I can trade manuscripts with, it's just massively important. But I think too, you know, during the pandemic I read a lot more, and for me, research is actually pretty enjoyable, unless it's nautical. Oh, yeah, I hate ships. Hate them. Hate all their sails. Hate all the rigging. Don't care at all. So no, there will be no ships in any future books. Season Storm was a nightmare for me. Wait, everything is the mizzen mast? Because I was like, that's a good one. I like the mizzen mast. But there's, you know, but other kinds of research. History is just stories, and especially when it's told well. And so for me, researching this book has been really pleasurable, and some of it is, you know, rooted in my own background, and so it's been a chance to sort of explore something that I don't know, you know, being Jewish means that you've sort of been flung far and wide, like, you know, a handful of sunflower seeds, and so getting to actually trace some of those things and go back into the past has been pretty meaningful.
Yeah, I love that. Did the pandemic, a lot of authors were talking about how or if the pandemic changed how you read.
Yeah.
How
I mean, I can tell you, I always talk about Interior Chinatown because it was sort of one of the less literary books I read because it hit me so hard that I was like, ooh, it is a brilliant and funny and smart and strange book. But it explores relationships so poignantly and acutely that, like, I was sobbing my way through half of that book. And I was like, I need something gentler for the next, I'm gonna go bake a pie and I'm gonna read something cozy. And I read a lot of cozy mysteries. I read Anthony Horowitz and the Thursday Murder Club, and like I read a lot of thrillers and mysteries because they're genre, and because I was like, I know where I'm gonna be at the end of this book.
I really thought you might have been about to say Garfield. I mean, we were going to Garfield.
That's right. You're going.
That's so funny. My reading went like, I only want doorstop. I went the other way. I was like watching Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and The English Patient, and reading just like,
wow.
Like, give me 800 pages or
no.
get out. Yeah. I don't know what, like Lonesome Dove, here we are. It was such a good
book. And the miniseries.
And now I have to watch the miniseries. I'm so excited about it. But anyway, it was very funny to see how different people found comfort in different types of reading during that time. And you know, we're coming out of it, and I'm like, no, I'm still in. Like, Shogun? Sure, let's try it.
Wow. When you go, you go. I respect that.
Yeah. I'm on a boat right now with this book, I'll tell you, it's intense. Okay, I have a very important last question, and then we will get to some audience questions. Shadow and Bone Season 2. Yes, I want to hear about it, but also, did you get to keep that dress?
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah, it's hanging in my closet. But Wendy built a corset for me to wear under it. So that day I was like, I cannot go to the bathroom. I did not. Hero. But it was so beautiful, but I can't wear it. Like, I basically wear it as a robe.
Oh, but see, I picture you wearing it and writing and just having.
Wow, bless you. This is a much more glamorous picture than my dirty pajamas.
Just go with that.
It is beautiful. I did not get to do a cameo in season 2. If we get a season 3, I'm gonna beg to be I just want to be somebody who dies horribly. Like, I'd like to like just run and be like, like a girl in the neck or something.
I love that. Yeah. And season 2 is coming out. Can you tell us anything about it?
Oh yes.
Like when it's coming out?
Okay. All I can offer is that we will have news very soon. I can't tell you when, but very soon. And you are going to be very surprised about some of the places we go in season 2. The writers pulled from, when I say they had, at this point, Netflix had bought all of the Grishaverse books, and they were like, they found threads to tie together and took things that I didn't even see coming. So it's really fun, and I think, like the first season, it's going to give you what you wanted. You know, you're going to get to see a lot of the scenes from the books, but you're also going to get to see scenes that never would have existed if we hadn't brought these stories together. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I'm sure we're all going to be readily watching for news of that. Yay. Well, I wanted to see if you guys have any questions for me. We have like maybe time for 2 or 3. Yes, go for it.
Hi, Leigh. Thank you. So, what was it like doing the cameo for season 1 for Shadow and Bone?
So the cameo. So he was asking what it was like doing the cameo for season 1.
Yes.
First of all, I got to be fitted into this beautiful outfit. Wendy did give me these gorgeous shoes, but they were so uncomfortable. Like, I had to cut my ankles, and so they let me wear my Crocs and socks. So through that whole scene, there's a Grisha wearing Crocs. They also, in the scene, these Grisha come down the stairs, and that was really special for me because many scenes in the show obviously did not come from the books, but that one definitely did, and it was a scene that I had a very clear memory of writing and sort of trying to choreograph in my head. So it was pretty extraordinary to get to be there on that day. And Eric was the one who came up with the idea that I would be the one to hug Jessie, Alina, and sort of welcome her into Grisha. And I am also just a terrible actor, it turns out. And so you can see, like, every shot of me, I'm like, I have this huge happy grin on my face.
That Grisha's just happy to be here.
So happy. I'm the happiest fabricator. So, but they had these stairs, and so every time they would reset, they would go all the way up the stairs. And so to keep me from having to do that, they just hid me in a little behind a plant. And the first time we did it, they put me in the wrong place. And so you see the Grisha come down, and then I'm like, the one lone fabricator. So, yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's great though. Such a good question.
Go for it.
Hi. I guess I want to ask about how you balance prose versus pacing, especially now that you're, I guess, even going into historical fantasy. Like, how does that change, like, genre to genre?
So the question was how to balance prose, like, you mean like when we're like, let's make it pretty type prose, versus pacing. Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't like super flowery prose, which is, that sounds super unkind, but like there's a type of writing that a lot of people love that is often described as lyrical or lush. I'm usually like too many words, and I tend to sort of not be excited by that. But I will, much like any writer, we are sort of enchanted with our own metaphors and our own turns of phrase. I think for me, I'm always thinking about, is the language necessary, right? There's the moment, and how does the language serve the moment? And I think the best way to sort of balance that is to read things like very good poetry and very good prose that you love and that you want to write like, because you're feeding yourself a diet of beautiful language, and you're broadening your palette, especially if you're reading outside of the genre that you usually like, right? You're going to be able to pull from things instead of just echoing the things that you love. But I don't really think about it too much. I can tell you that with Ninth House, the only things that got cut were my descriptions of food. Like, I had these like rapturous descriptions of the Sunday bar. And he was like, too much. A little too much. But I was like, what's the maraschino cherries? So there are times when an editor will pull you back, and I love being edited, and that's really part of it too, is having somebody like, people will sometimes ask me like, oh, do you get in fights with your editor? And I'm like, no. The nightmare is if your editor doesn't have notes, because then you know they don't care. So like actually being edited, having a push and pull on that helps to keep that pace and that prose. But I would also say that is the question for like the final revision that you're doing, where you're going through and seeing like what really works and what doesn't live in service to the story.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, go for it.
Again, Six of Crows 3. Is there any sort of hint or teaser? Any kind of, anything you can give us?
So the question was Six of Crows 3. Is it gonna happen? How?
Possibly, maybe.
So when I wrote Rule of Wolves, I had every intention of writing the third Six of Crows book. I have a lot of ideas for that story. And if you read the end of Rule of Wolves, that door is wide open. But I will be honest and say that after this, and this was starting to happen already, I am very grateful for how many people came to the books because of the show. But things got real noisy, and it became almost impossible for me to write in the Grishaverse and not hear that noise. So I'm gonna wait. Like, Like I know what the story is. I have ideas for it, but for me, I want to write it when I really want to write it, and when I feel like I can do justice to the characters, as opposed to just getting paid a lot of money. Though I love money. But I don't want to ever be locked into it. One of the big joys of actually having been fortunate enough to have the career that I have is I get to choose now what I want to write. And it doesn't just have to be about a paycheck. And I don't think there's any reader out there, I assume, who would want me to just be doing it for the sake of doing it. Like I want to me, it would be better to leave that as a duology than to write a book that my heart wasn't in.
Totally got it. That's fair.
So a little while. It's gonna be a little while.
We have time for one more.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about the beginning of your writing journey, how you got into it, and then maybe if you have advice for young writers?
The beginning of my writing journey and how I got into it. I mean, I wrote a lot as a kid. I was an only child for a big chunk of my life, and I talked to myself constantly and wrote stories constantly, but I think it was when I was in junior high and when I discovered science fiction and fantasy that writing became almost a survival mechanism for me. I would write myself into the worlds I loved, and I wrote a lot of like very thinly veiled self-insert fiction about like a beautiful young blonde lady, you know, who had really hit her stride. But like, I was really obsessed with kind of building these worlds, but I didn't really know what I was doing. As I got older, I had always wanted to be a novelist, but I had no idea how to write a book. And I will be honest and say that, you know, I hit my 30s and thought, well, you know, it's just not gonna happen. There's a lot of people who want to be novelists and they never become novelists, they never finish a book, and I thought maybe I just don't have it in me. And then, and even when I got the idea for Shadow and Bone, it wasn't like I sat up and was like, I'm gonna write this book. I was like, well, why bother? It's gonna be one more thing you start and don't finish. And then I was on the phone with Michelle Tihara, who's don't cry, I'll cry. And I was in a very, very dark place. And she said, why, you know, go to the MFA, go and, you should be writing. And I thought, I don't belong in an MFA, but I am going to write this book. And you know what the magical sauce was? I just needed to learn to outline. It was like I had been wearing the ruby slippers all along, and the ruby slippers was a 3-act structure. But for me, that changed everything. And I got off the phone with her, I outlined that book, and 6 months later I had my first draft. And it changed everything.
Yeah, and I love your origin story because it is about not being like, we love to highlight young writers and they deserve to be highlighted, but everybody can write. If you are here and have a story to tell, no matter what age, background, experience in life, you can write your story, you should do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have a bad habit of saying to young people, like, you're so smart for your age, you're so talented for your age. No, you're smart, you're talented, okay? You may not be, maybe you will be the person who writes a book in high school or college and get your deal, and I will cheer you on the whole time. But if it doesn't happen that way, if you have to have a day job, if you can't have the major that you want to have, it doesn't matter. And if you've gone through all of that, and you're 30 or 40 or whatever it is, it doesn't make any difference. The fact is, and this town is a perfect testament to this, everybody is hungry for good stories. They are hungry and desperate for them, and they don't know where to get them. So if you have one, you must put it on the page. Someone will want to hear it, and only you can do it. Like you're the secret chosen one, just like all those IA books.
Yes. And if you write the book first, you own the IP. Go do it. Thank you all so much. Please go into Vroman's, buy amazing books, buy Leigh's book, pre-order Hellbent, and thank you, Leigh. This was really special.